Hello and welcome to the Live Reality Game Podcast. My name is Steven, and I'm very excited to be here today for the first the Mole Ohio 2025 episode recap of the premiere episode. And joining me today, we have the first executed player. You may know him as someone who loves the color purple, who's a big fan of the genus, can juggle as a secret talent, but most importantly, doesn't smoke but enjoys a celebratory cigar. Joining us is Riley. How are you doing, Riley?
I'm doing fantastic. I still have the cigar sitting in the box. No need to break them out quite yet.
So, did you hear that even once you're limited, that answer continued to be on every single quiz?
Yes, I did hear that all of the executed players still had their answers part of the pool, so made it extra confusing, I think, for all of you guys going forward, or just didn't make your life easier.
I mean, it wasn't something I was expecting until it was like, "Did you see the cigar thing? That's Riley." I was like, "What?" And so that was like kind of like, "Oh gosh!" Like it does the questions aren't getting narrow as we go. I was like, "Oh no, this is going to be hard."
Yeah.
So how have you been? We were just chatting. It's been about even less than 2 months since the game happened. How have you been since the Mole Ohio?
No, it's been busy, having summer, getting the kids back into school, starting that routine again. But it's been good. Just helped Wayne, a Mole Ohio alum, the Mole last season. Spoiler alert. Sorry if that was if you haven't
We
seen
can
it.
spoil 2024 and earlier. We just won't spoil this season. Even
Yeah.
though, yes, I am a player, I am at risk of elimination at any given point in time. When and if I am eliminated, someone will be on here to help run the podcast and talk to me.
I'll nominate myself. For
You're
that
more than
too.
welcome to join back for that. I would love that.
But helped Wayne out. He had a game this past weekend down here in Orlando, my neck of the woods, so helped him out in production for that. So that was a fun weekend. Shout out to Glitch that just wrapped up on Tuesday, I believe, of this week. So
Was that a Survivor style game? Big Brother, Mole, original?
original with heavy influences from Big Brother and Survivor, primarily.
Gotcha.
hmm
So I'm curious, prior to the Mole Ohio, what other games had you played?
I had played one LRG previously in June, so about a month before Mole, Ohio. So that was Deception ATL, which was a survivor-based game up in Blue Ridge, Georgia. So played in that game. Obviously, Survivor very different than the Mole, but won that game, which was exciting.
Oh,
So
that's
kind of
huge. Congrats.
both ends of the spectrum, essentially. So everything else will be in the middle, I think, going forward, hopefully.
Do you wish you had started off with the first boot and then won, or is it better to win and then be first boots?
I'm just gonna not have any regrets and just say how it turned out is the way it was supposed to turn out. So
Okay, I like
we'll
that
live with that.
philosophy.
Yeah.
Some comments from Tim, the host, and well, not the host, the production showrunner, the man behind everything for the Mole Ohio. In terms of not removing the celebratory cigar, it made his life easier when designing the quizzes. So maybe inadvertent effects, it was a bit challenging for us, but it was a good challenge, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, how did you hear about the Mole Ohio?
So had a friend of mine, Sarah. She played in season 4 of Mole, Ohio, and I've known her for a few years, and she has kind of helped push me into this community, and it's been fun. And she made that connection with Tim, and that's kind of how I reached out. I've been a fan of the Mole as a format of the original show when it came out over 20 years ago. So it's something that's always piqued my interest, and yeah, I was eager to play and try it out.
I'm curious. So, do you watch the international versions? Have you stuck with the American versions?
Yeah, I've seen all of the American versions. I've seen um, various international versions. I think one or two of the Dutch, the two British, and maybe one Australian. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit. Obviously, it's hard to multitask on something that's got subtitles, so it's a little slow going for me nowadays trying to watch those versions online.
Do you have a favorite season?
Um, that's a good question. I think I still have the DVD. So I have a DVD player just to I guess watch some oldies. But season the original of the US version is one that I've probably seen that season, I don't know, a dozen times or so. Just kind of pop it in every once in a while. I know it was on streaming a few years back. Was able to kind of watch it in higher resolution potentially than what I've got, but yeah, I'd probably say that just in terms of hours logged.
So, because I have your dossier transcribed in my notebook out in front of me, one of the things that stood out to me immediately was that your favorite show was The Genius, which is a show I love. And so,
Mhm.
what was your favorite? What was your favorite Genius season?
Oh, I'd probably say season 2 of The Genius is my favorite season. I have not seen. I think it was earlier this year, like the BBC version of The Genius came out. I've not had a chance to get around to watching that. Still trying to get caught up on all these other shows out there, but I'm eager to see what that iteration looks like. Have you seen it, Steven?
I have not seen the British one.
Okay.
I saw the first. I saw 3.5 seasons of the Korean one. I still need to finish season 4 someday. And I've watched the
Yeah,
Netherlands one because that's just on YouTube. So that was easy to catch.
correct. Yeah, I saw the Netherlands. Well, I didn't love that one as much, but
It
yeah, no,
was it was still good. I can't believe that the forwarder just chokes in the last game. You're like, oh my gosh.
yeah, but no, I love those types of challenges or missions or whatever you want to call them. But and I think the mole kind of has similar to those itches. Obviously, there's kind of more of that saboteur element to it, but I like it's more mental. Obviously, I like a good physical challenge like in Survivor type games, and but those mental challenges are kind of intriguing where there's kind of like that hidden twist and trying to like that next level to try to figure it out.
So you apply for the Mole Ohio, you get cast. I'm curious, did you want to be the mole? Was that something you were like actively trying to get, or you're just like, I'm good with anything?
I think it was, I'm good with anything. I certainly wouldn't shy away from being the mole by any means, but it's just two different, tasks. I do a lot of social deduction games, like Werewolf Mafia type of deal. So, half the fun is obviously kind of trying to deceive everybody, but cracking the case in and of itself can be, fun challenge and more of I guess, a challenge, and then it's just more trying to navigate under the radar and be some deceitful and sabotaging if you are the mole. So I was not shying away from it, but I was content and happy being the just a regular agent. Obviously, if I was the mole, I could have stuck around the whole time, but is what it is.
So you're coming in as an agent. I'm curious, was there any prep work you did before the play, or did you have any strategies coming in?
Yeah, I would say that I was. I probably wish I prepared a little bit more. Steven, it was kind of bogged down with some stuff. I had a work meeting earlier that day when the game started, and I think that I guess the second day we were there, and everyone's like studying for the upcoming execution. I've got my laptop. I think I was sitting next to you, Steven, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I remember if early in the morning you're like, I just have work things I had to knock out right now. I was
yeah,
like, good luck.
exactly. So I maybe mentally wasn't in the best headspace, or what I mean, or be able to completely lock in on things. But no, coming into it was trying to seem, I don't say aloof, but a little standoffish and maybe a slightly suspicious early on, and then obviously trying to make some connections with some players. And I think I was I was kind of the I'll say the fourth wheel on that sus squad type of deal in terms of like sus adjacent, in terms of sitting on the couch with those three guys that first night, and kind of sharing some stuff, and obviously connected with Josh a little bit just in terms of had known him previously a little bit from before, from outside the game, and we slept in the same room, so kind of discussed some things and had some similar thoughts on it. But yeah, coming in was trying to maybe link up with some folks that maybe would have different connections with other agents and other players to kind of gather some more intel. But yeah, it didn't wasn't meant to last, so hard to kind of really execute too much with such a short time in the game. But yeah, that was kind of the approach coming into it.
So we'll definitely go back and talk about the Seth Squad a little bit later, but I want to kind of talk about, coming in. I can't. I can't remember the order that we entered the house. Were you there in part of the earlier group, or were you there part of the later people that arrived in the house?
Later, yeah, later
Okay.
group. I think I definitely was not the last, but maybe, second or third to last. So towards the tail end.
You still
There's
had a
only a
glass of wine
little bit of
thrust into your
wine left.
hand.
What's that?
You still had a glass of wine thrust into your hand, or at least a sip of wine.
Yeah, exactly. It was the dregs, but I gladly accepted, so no complaints.
And so you kind of mentioned that you kind of knew Josh a little bit beforehand. Was there anyone else you recognized or knew coming into the game?
No, that was it. Only Josh. And I played that LRG in June, and before that, I only had one org experience, which was a survivor based game, and Josh was in that game as well with me, and we both didn't work together too much, a little bit, but we both kind of made it late in the game, so that was a face I recognized. I was like, oh, I know this human being, so that was the only person I knew coming in.
And so on arrival, I guess, did anyone stand out to you in like a good or bad way, or at all?
No, Luke, and I think maybe you even touched on it. Yeah, I walked in, he was strategically placed by the kitchen door to immediately greet everybody. So he was, kind of introduced himself early, made a big impression. But no one else really stood out too much in terms of, serious suspicion or anything like that. But everyone was super friendly, to begin with. So it was kind of more of just a clean slate. It wasn't until later in the day, that first night, that started to kind of get some more impressions on some people. But yeah, initially everyone was. I felt like, yeah, some people were maybe trying a little too hard or kind of pushing themselves out. So maybe starting to think more eliminating people from being who the mole could be. But yeah, nothing strong.
So we have the very first challenge, right? And in this challenge, we are broken up by the mole into 4 groups of 3. And you end up being on the yellow team. The yellow team is most unique role because you are with the crossword puzzle, right? And so you're trying to collect information from these other 3 teams to solve the crossword when you don't even know the clues. You just know 3 down is 5 letters, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about this experience, because you're with Joe and Luke for this.
Correct. Yeah. So, coming into it, and as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, is like, come in, just, be kind of quiet and let, people just maybe question what, Riley guy's kind of a little aloof or quiet or standoffish a little bit. So, watching that back on video, I kind of was keen and happy to kind of just sit back and let Luke, Luke was very, hands on with wanting to take over, and Joe had the walkie-talkie, and it's like, I'll just kind of sit back and kind of throw my 2 cents in a little bit and maybe be slightly helpful, slightly not helpful. And as the challenge kind of proceeded, I maybe, I misspelled or the university that Danny went to, and just trying to not be overly helpful, essentially.
But spelled it wrong on purpose.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
And then
okay.
just kind of like then scribbling and making it somewhat illegible as well. Able to solve it, but just again, not trying to be, helpful right out of the gate. And it is what it is, and we're kind of bebopping along, and then I guess the something deep down inside of me, that competitive nature or something, where nothing was getting done. Luke was getting frustrated. Joe was, is getting a little frustrated as well, and we're asking questions, and your group, Stephen, was being somewhat, unhelpful.
Really unhelpful.
Yeah, and so then I ended up probably against, what was best for my game was, I'll take the walk. Let me try to help, improve some communication across the board, and I think I did that, which was good and maybe beneficial in us earning as much money as we did on that challenge. The downside was, I think everyone immediately kind of go, "Oh, yellow's not super suspicious," because we made, I forget exactly the total was, over $100 out of that challenge. So I think
$115 because we got 23 correct.
yeah. So it was one of those situations where it's like, oh well, I don't think everyone thinks Riley's the most suspicious person now after the first challenge. So maybe not ideal in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, kind of forgot about being unhelpful about halfway through and started to yeah, watching the video back, you kind of see me in the back, and then I kind of work my way closer to the front, of the crossword puzzle. But that was fun. It was a little difficult. I don't say one of my weaknesses is it takes me a while to learn names, Steven. You really need to like look at the person. If we had the name tags, that's perfect for me. But it takes me a little while to really attribute a name to a face. And when you have walkie talkies, it's even harder. Like, oh, what was that voice that I heard that's now muffled and 60 yards away? So it's very difficult for me, at least, to really who's talk. I don't know who's talking. Like who's that's that person's being not very helpful right now. But who is that? So a little tough on my side, at least, to try to figure out exactly who was who and which group that wasn't giving us that intel. So after that challenge was kind of more, all right, this is, the three other groups and trying to lock in and really try to figure out who was being the least helpful, so to speak. But yeah, no, it was, yeah, I think everyone was kind of holding back a little bit, some better than others. Admittedly was not the best at holding back a little bit, but yeah, able to maybe see several folks not being as helpful as they could be.
Because I definitely agree. I feel like the challenge of the mole games is like, I like winning. I want to win. And you kind of just like, but wait, like if I'm a player, I want people to still think I'm the mole. So I have to kind of sandbag, but I don't want to sandbag. And it's just this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so your fellow yellow team member, Joe's in the chat, agreeing that him and Luke were also getting very frustrated. And that's figure out who was talking the walkie-talkie after we all just met and didn't know each other was a huge difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, post-challenge, did you what did you kind of piece together about the other teams or what kind of raised red flags or green flags for you about what you were kind of learning about how it went with other teams?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, coming into it was thinking that the mole would not necessarily be as, overt over the top of just, Steven, what's your favorite color? And, maybe it's green, but you just blatantly going, it's yellow. It's Adam, it's definitely yellow, especially in something where it's a crossword where there's a finite number of letters. You know what I mean? It's kind of easy to tell if you're lying potentially. So it was more people that were just delaying or causing things to slow down or just delay the progress. So it was kind of more subtle things. So that was a tough thing of trying to figure out like who was that in that group, but was able to kind of have some suspicions. Your group in particular, Steven, was one that I was like, that one is not. They are not, and that was Aaron, Brianne, and yourself, I believe. Steven was. I was like that trio was like holding back. Was it obviously you were all in cahoots together and had some sort of agreement? No one's grabbed the walkie-talkie and started screaming, "This person is sabotaging. This is these are all the answers." So it kind of put a little bit of a damper on it, but that was kind of a spotlight for me. Immediately went towards your group ultimately, but there's obviously some other players in the game that drew some suspicion from me.
Yeah, one minor thing. So for this challenge, we're kind of in 4 different groups, right? Your group,
Mm-hmm.
Riley's inside, and other 3 groups were out on the streets, kind of by different production vehicles. And
Yep.
my group, we're kind of the farthest away in John's vehicle. And John, I don't know if the other teams just got handed their walkie-talkie and paper, but we had to find ours. And so like there's a couple minutes of us looking through his car and I'm in the front seat and apparently I just didn't dig deep enough in the glove box to know that the walkie-talkie was there. So we end up getting a little bit late to the party. And then Aaron's like, Aaron with an E, because there's Aaron with an A. Aaron the E is like, what we should do is ask the question, get the answer, and then ask how many letters it is to verify that people are giving us the correct answer.
Right.
Which then caused a bunch of chaos. Because people were like, people are just like, what question is this? What number is this? Like, why are you asking just random things?
Yeah.
I'm curious, looking back in the episode, getting to see all the other teams, anything surprise you or stand out to you?
I think it just provided a lot more clarity, in terms of seeing that dynamic a little bit. I'm trying to attribute a voice to a name, which is a struggle in and of itself, but then kind of seeing those interactions within that group, which obviously, it would be more telling, seeing that exact interaction, but it's like, oh, seeing the dynamic of the players within the group talking, like yours and then even the other groups with Aaron, Aaron, and who was that? That was Aaron and Josh and
No.
Noah. Kind of seeing that interesting dynamic there of just kind of being playful and still just pausing and slowing down. And then it was Emily Lachey and Danny and the other group where that was perplexing to me. I was like, Lachey, how do you not know your favorite author?
And it ends up being so different from J.K. Rowling too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I'm pretty sure it's this. I think there's like two different names that were out there. And it's like, those don't even fit.
She was saying like DJ McHale. There we go. She was saying DJ McHale.
Yeah. And it's like, no, that's not it. Try, let's start over. But at least kind of seeing some more of those communications when the button wasn't being pressed was, obviously with some spoilers, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I can see things now. You know what I mean? See it a little bit better now in hindsight, but again, it didn't pick up on it enough playing in the game.
You have a fan, Nick Bublitz, saying hi.
Oh, hey, Nick.
So yeah, because personally for me, I really struggled to get information out of this challenge because it was so chaotic. We're all these different groups, and it's hard to know what was happening. So for me, I ended up feeling this was the best information I had was on Brienne and Aaron because I was there, I was seeing them, I was seeing what they were doing. But it was hard for me to really get a good grasp on everything else happening because it was just so wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was kind of grasping at straws. The only thing walking away from it was I felt a lot better about Luke and Joe. The two people that I was with. I thought we ended up working well, and I think as talked about in the episode, it was kind of like, I think we all kind of worked through. I think Luke talked about me maybe misspelling it, and Joe maybe taking a while to remember what his superpower was, like controlling the weather, I think was the question. But we still got the answers right. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that overt of a sabotage from anybody. So I felt really good about our group, but then I think as a result, everybody, I don't want to speak, from your side of it, but I felt like a lot of people were like, oh, yellow's probably good too. So it was kind of a, no net gain for me. You had your own intel on your group with Aaron and Brienne, but you probably still felt good about yellow. Meanwhile,
yes, I did.
I just felt good about yellow. So I was kind of, I felt like we were behind a little bit in terms of some of that, just based off of how the challenge went. So in hindsight, we probably could have been less helpful. At least personally, would have been one good. But
so morning of day 2, I wrote notes about every player. And so for you, one of the notes I had, you're in the yellow group of the radios. You did a good job. You volunteered info. That was what I kind of noted for you from this challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for those who really want to know Lachey's favorite author, it is Kathleen Glasgow, not DJ McHale, apparently. We never would have guessed.
Yeah.
Other things you never learned, Noah's favorite scent. That was the other one. We're just like, because like we did these questionnaires 1 to 2 months ago. So I had zero recollection of what I did. And I actually tried to look to see if I got like an email receipt of like my responses. And I didn't see one because I looked before the game, like, what did I write for this? I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that was well played, Tim.
So after this challenge, we do well. We get $115. We then learn that there may be consequences in terms of we all get handed these little plastic black tubes and told, if you open them, there will be consequences, and that's all we know. And so you have this tube in hand. Talk me through your thought process around this tube and what you're seeing happen around you as we're all sitting there.
Yeah, so grabbing the tube, I had zero intention of. I obviously, shook it, and it seemed empty for what it's worth. It could have been something, you know, taped on the inside or something like that. But without seemingly anything inside of it, I had zero incentive to open it. Unless it was, production would tell us after the fact of, oh, you opened it. There's nothing in here, but you get some grand prize of X. But without, if there was something moving in there, like shaking around, like ooh, I would have probably been more inclined to open it. But I was I was content just to keep it in my pocket and not really do anything and not let it try to distract me so much. But I had zero intention of doing anything else, just in terms of it being too overt. Obviously, Josh and Luke kind of jumped on. Let's all like put some paper bags over our head and drink Kool Aid, and we'll all open it at the same time.
Might have sold me a little bit more if it had that aspect in their pitch.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I was fine to let them. I wasn't going to try to stop anybody from doing it. And then, uh, it was one of those situations where we were doing some confessionals, I think, and working your way down. I think I sat down on the floor there in that living room, and I was seeing Josh just left his dossier on the ground to go do his production. I remember seeing Emily like, oh, there's two here. What do I do with this? And she just like slid it across to you, and you're like, oh, there's what do I do too? I was like, I don't know, like it's silly. And then next thing I know, Josh comes back down. Hey, where'd my dossier? Oh, it was right. Oh, where'd it go? Um, and it was one of those situations where he didn't really even seem to care too much. He just buddied up with Aaron to find the rest of the stuff. But I know, and then a tube went missing as well during that same kind of shuffle where I was like, yeah, stuff's just flying off the shelves over here. But um, yeah, so that was interesting, and I did end up, as we saw in the episode, finding that a tube, Luke's missing tube that I guess Lachey ended up hiding there in the bathroom. So I found that the next day, and I had zero intention of giving that to back to Luke. If nothing else, I was going to try to. I didn't know the exact timing of when these tubes would be, called upon for presentation, but I was definitely going to let myself be caught holding that, having two in my pocket, or letting it fall out of my pocket, or fall out of my bag, type of deal, and maybe casting some suspicion or aversion toward my way. But yeah, it kind of was first thing, day two. Everyone kind of pulled him out, so just kind of sat there, and I disappeared shortly thereafter. So nothing ever got to come of the extra tube in my pocket.
Yeah, that was interesting because like we all watched Josh open the tube, and Tim is saying I didn't realize they would be so hard to open. Watching Josh struggle to open it was really half the fun because he wants it desperately. He's just fighting for like minutes to try to get it open. He had to squeeze it to pop it open was the
Correct.
answer. Was
And
the solution.
in production's defense, it really wasn't that hard to open. It was just more not reading the instructions. It was like, printed in, granted, it was black on black, in terms of the raised
There were
font.
instructions?
Yeah, it said like press here.
Oh, I didn't see
on it.
that.
It was just like, slightly raised lettering on the tube itself. Again, you'd have to kind of hold it up to the light essentially to look at it. But yeah, Josh, he wasn't doing himself any favors, I think. I love Josh, but I think the tube was just fine.
Another fun fact, the plan was to include a strip of photosensitive paper inside the tubes, but he couldn't find any that reacted to light fast enough. So just like, so the tubes ended up being empty. I personally think it would be funny if there was like confetti and that, but then you are glitter, but then they would get everywhere, and like we want to get the Airbnb clean enough, probably
lose the deposit, probably.
Yeah. So Josh opens his tube. Luke's tube you have, because he loses it. Lachey gets it somehow, and then Danny is the other person who doesn't have a tube at the moment. I think that was the biggest surprise for everyone. It was a surprise to me at the time.
Yeah, no, yeah, the fact that Rachel definitely was very very adamant that you had to keep it on your body at all times, type of deal. And with all the kerfuffle about Josh and Luke, and Luke was making it known that he was missing a tube for 18 hours or however long it was.
Yes.
And so the fact that Danny did not have the tube on her person when it was a bit surprising. So yeah, to your point, that was what are we doing here? Why do we not have it next to us? Especially at a group setting type of deal. So yeah, that was the biggest question mark for sure. So I know that I think had some people looking her way after that for sure.
Let's talk about the second challenge of the episode. For this challenge, we're working up to 3 teams of 4. There's group 1, group 2, and group 3, and each team is in a different place with a radio, and it has to relay a pattern of symbols, like a 5x5, 5x4 grid, 4x5 grid, some sort of grid of symbols to the next team. And so the problem is you'd have to scramble your symbols to arrange them for the previous group. So 2 groups have to kind of memorize them, but 1 group just has it easy. We end up being in group 1 together. So it's you, me, it is Aaron, and it is Josh as a group. Was this a team of people you wanted to be with, or are you just happy to see other people besides Luke and Joe at this point?
Yeah, that was essentially it. Was just kind of see different people. Ideally, probably, I felt going into that challenge, I felt I wasn't overly suspicious about either of you 3 kind of going into it. So it was one of those situations where I was like, not necessarily, like I'd rather be around my suspicions, right? It'd be the ideal situation. So I wasn't like too thrilled in terms of, fantastic human beings, Steven, but it wasn't like these 3 are my top suspects. Let me observe them in their natural habitat. So, it was fine. And then it was even less telling because, as you mentioned, Steven, like we didn't have to. There's no like if we screwed up, it was going to be very obvious in terms of we just had to read it. I say that, but then in reality, it still ended up some suspicion on our group, mainly Aaron, with reciting our list of symbols blindly without looking at it, which isn't necessarily helpful. And then obviously the issue with, was it shield and arrow or something, whatever the last 2 symbols were, which I know we all conferred of. I think we said it like I feel good, right? Steven, did we say he said the
so
right thing?
Tim has, I'm pretty sure, confirmed it that our group said it right. Somehow the team 2 messed it up. So I think we're good here. But it ends up being kind of the mystery of like the 4 of us said we said it right. The next 4 said we heard it wrong. It's just like
right.
And like I kept thinking it was like a grand conspiracy by team 2. So like at one point, like I'm sure I talked to Bran and Aaron, like, hey, you all didn't like is there some agreement going on here? And they're like, no, we really heard it this way. I'm just like, we really said it the right way. And I was like, I just don't know at this point. It's a collective delusion.
No, that was the baffling thing where I was like, surely they're just hamming it up and just trying to point blank, because it was very very big reactions, right? I don't even know if that was fully on camera or not, but there's some big reactions to how we could walk away with $0 from that overall challenge. And it was like, I feel confident in what I heard, but obviously they're very confident, and if they're not, they're very good actors or actors, to really commit to it. So that was an interesting thing, and that's kind of for me, rightly or wrongly, I narrowed in on that group 2 with like there's something funny going on in that group, just in terms of a combination of the big reactions and completely different reality or perception than what I had for what was said. So I felt like something was off there, but that was kind of my takeaway from that second challenge.
Looking back and watching the challenge, was there anything else new that stood out to you about the challenge?
No, I think there was some doubt in terms of, hey, group 1, you didn't turn the walkie-talkie on for. I don't know if this is editing or what. It just seemingly felt like 5 minutes that we're just sitting there poking our noses and just
we're memorizing it.
Yeah, exactly, which we didn't need to memorize it at all apparently. But yeah, so that was, I know people were a little unhappy with our group for taking a while to switch it on. But no, I think that was the big standout. Was I think a combination of taking a while to recite, basically read off our symbols, and then it still wasn't even right. And then group 2, group 3, they had their issue, and then I think group 3 just ran out of time. Essentially, we had to blindly guess on the last one in terms of us taking too long to get to them. So, yeah, nothing new from my perspective watching it back on tape.
So one thing we haven't talked about yet is that we have the dossiers, and after that second challenge, we have the rest of the evening. And these dossiers are large. It's about 48 pages, 4 pages per player. What are you doing with this dossier that you received? Because we only have it till the following morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was, first I started just kind of scribbling everything, verbatim, and then kind of using some shorthand to give my hand a break a little bit. And then, after a while, I ended up just doing, like, creating, groupings in terms of, like, for each category, and then kind of having every player's answers readily available in there. And my biggest, thought process, which was probably somewhat inaccurate and probably didn't help me on this first one, was thinking that every answer, every question would maybe have answers that would apply to multiple folks. And
you and I both talked about this before the quiz.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, like where is the mole from? My thought would be like, oh, Texas, Pennsylvania, especially where there's like 2 people from Texas, 2 people from Pennsylvania, several people from Ohio, like there were some natural groupings. So I was kind of just looking for a lot of the, the common denominators, in terms of like, okay, these are the majority answers. And, there were some questions that maybe had, applied to multiple people in terms of like eye color or something like that, or age. But it was very much like, oh, there's going to be 12 answers to every question asked, where it's like, well, that kind of changes my strategy completely, where I'm just like going to be going with the numbers fully to, I just have to pick one. I'm going to have to like pick Steven. I'm going to have to pick Danny. I'm going to have to pick Aaron. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to have to pick an individual person, which was not how I was looking to approach it. So it was, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but yeah, for the dossier, that's kind of how I ended up structuring things a little bit, of just like almost looking for like averages or median answers, so to speak, and not even really, I say, caring too much, but almost not really saying, oh yeah, I know everything about Steven right now. I just kind of know that like the majority of people are from this area, you know what I mean? Or the majority eye color, I think was it blue or I forget now. But
I can check if I don't remember.
But it's just one of those things. I didn't memorize what eye color everybody had at that point for that first quiz. It was more a matter of like, let me just find like shoe sizes. I know the average shoe size is 9.5 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we've got a couple 11s, like that kind of deal. And I couldn't tell you your shoe size, Steven, or anybody else, but like that wasn't my intent. It was more like, let me just find some of these groupings.
And that's just how I was going about the first quiz too. I was kind of like looking for like what is the most common answer choice I can select that matches the most amount of people. Or like, if I want to go, is their shoe size greater than less than 8? Maybe I'll go less than 8. So like, are they male or female? Like, or like are they taller or shorter than 5'8"? Or so I was thinking, exactly. I was expecting something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not as pointed as it ended up being for 20 questions.
Yeah, exactly.
So that evening, the first day, we have plenty of free time, and there's a group of us who are just at that table, just frantically writing, copying everything that's in the dossier. What are you up to that evening? Who are you talking to?
Yeah, so I think that's where kind of sitting on the couch. I think it was the smart people sitting at the table, and then a bunch of the slackers were like, oh, we'll just sit on the couch a little bit, and that's where it was kind of that sus squad, a little bit of just working over there. So sitting next to Luke for a lot of that, and with Josh and Aaron, and Josh was probably not the best study buddy at all, because he didn't even have a dossier. So he's just like watching everybody else write things down and like semi writing things down at the same time, but then just distracting everyone else a little bit, with other things, since he can't write. So it probably didn't help my note taking abilities being over there. I should have been with the smart people like Emily and you at the table. But Brienne ended up coming over as well and kind of connected with her a little bit. Shout out to her. We definitely connected in the game, even though it didn't stick around too long. But yeah, that kind of that group, I'd say, were the ones that I spent a majority of the time with. Obviously, got to try to talk with everybody a little bit, but everyone was kind of laboriously writing notes. I felt like no one stayed up late to drink or play game. You know what I mean? It was kind of everyone was in note taking mode and trying to retain as much information as possible with it. Those dossiers being taken away in a few hours.
Let's talk about Sasquatch, right? So Sasquatch we see being formed with Luke, Aaron, and Josh. But you were kind of mentioned earlier, like you were kind of going to be the fourth member of that coalition. Talking about how did you see that coalition forming, or was your road going to kind of be through Josh for it? You think?
No, definitely. Kind of saw it forming, and there was, that group. I was kind of, not in the flirtation zone. Kind of missed that moment a little bit, but there's obviously a connection with those three where say, hey, we'll Josh was probably that connection into that group of three, and it was kind of, hey, more data points the better, essentially. Obviously not too necessary beyond this first one, but I think Luke and I both felt good about one another in terms of I'm not overly suspicious of one another based off that first challenge, and then I wasn't too concerned about Aaron or Josh personally, and I think it was reciprocated as well. Of like Josh does his little Jedi mind test, like, are you the mole? If you like blink really quickly, then you are the mole. If not, then you're like I passed whatever test I test for him to gain some level of trust.
You did not do this to me.
But yeah, it was. Yeah, I think if I stuck around a little bit longer, then I think probably would have been a little bit more ingrained with that group. But yeah, no, they definitely kind of try to form something early to spread some suspicion, lean into some sabotage, and try to draw some votes their way, so to speak, and at least gather some information to be as informed as possible. That was, I think, Josh's big thing, was he was not focusing nearly as much out of it in terms of note taking. It was just more, hey, once we get some data from these quizzes, let's try to see how they overlap, and in the meantime, maybe draw some suspicion in the group's way, and let people maybe not do so great on the quizzes. But yep.
How late were you up that night?
That first, I don't think that's the downside, Stephen, of sleeping on the couch in the living room, is you can only fall asleep when people get off your bed, essentially. So like, it was, I couldn't tell you how long, but it was probably a little later than I wanted that first night, just because people were sitting on the couch that I was going to sleep on, essentially, was the bottom line. But it wasn't too late, if I recall.
So why the living room couch? What led you to choose that as your bed?
Well, I can sleep anywhere, Steve. Like I can sleep on the ground. My kids, I admittedly will sometimes just watch TV on the couch, and I'll fall asleep on the couch here at home. And even my older son, I was like, "Hey, mommy, how come Daddy like always sleeps on the couch or on the ground in the living room? Like, why doesn't he sleep in the bed?" Like, I don't know. Like, he just falls asleep watching TV. So like, where I sleep really doesn't bother me too much. So in the setting where everyone just go find a place, I would kind of was fine sitting back. Like, people can fight over which bed they want or which room has the best, central air spot, but I'll just sleep wherever there's space. So I was fine just staying down there on the couch for the sake of ease, type of deal. But yeah, that's kind. And then Josh, he was sleeping there as well. So at least had someone to kind of talk to about the game that night.
So Joe mentioned that the third floor was very hot. I mean, let's talk about sleeping arrangements real fast, because It was very interesting to see how the sleeping arrangements worked. So Aaron with an A went home to sleep because he lived like
Mhm.
an 45 minutes hour away and had really
A
cats he was
dog.
taking care of or a
Yeah, I think
dog
he
to
has some
take over
pets.
for roommates.
Yeah.
Um, second floor was then first floor was you and Josh.
And Danny.
Second and that you're right, and Danny, because Danny took an air mattress in the billiards room and that was her room.
Yeah, yeah.
And then third floor, or yeah, no, sorry, second floor, that was the majority of the rest of the cast. There was
Mhm.
plenty of bedrooms. But then at the attic, it was Luke, Brienne, and I who took the attic, which was very well heated, or the air conditioning was maybe not as good.
Mhm.
But and so you had this weird striation of where all the players were, and I feel like it was interesting to see how who people kind of slept with or around end up kind of influencing some natural maybe not coalitions or alliances, but you have kind of you'd form these relationships. So I know Luke, Brianna, and I talked for a little bit while once we got up there before going to sleep. We didn't like solidify anything, but I think felt good about both of them after those conversations, for instance.
Yeah. No, I think I agree, and that's where, you know, laying on the couch talking with Josh a little bit, about thoughts on the game, and we had some similar initial thoughts in terms of who the mole, could be. So it kind of maybe reaffirmed some of my beliefs. My own personal was, oh, somebody else is thinking this, so maybe onto something. Power in numbers. If two people think the same thing, then clearly it's got to be right, right? And that's I know. Hearing Josh a little bit after that first elimination, he's like, I really wish I could talk to Riley right now just to see, like to see what he put down on that first quiz, because that would probably help him a little bit moving forward, just because I know there was maybe some similarities in terms of thought processes on that first quiz. But um, yeah, is what it is. Sorry, Josh, couldn't give you anything.
One more bed situation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Joe picked the master closet to be his bedroom. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. Joe slept in the closet by the bedroom, and to be fair, it was a large closet. And like you said, there was an air vent and a window, and it had shelves to organize all the stuff. So, like, of all the places he might have gotten the best place in the house,
Yeah, I
maybe
didn't I didn't
it's
even
hard
know that
to
was an
say.
option, Joe. You didn't even advertise that, Thanks for sharing.
So we get some rest. Joe wants to point one more thing. The closet is big enough to fit a full air mattress. So players in Mole, Ohio 2026, if you're playing in the same location, the master closet, fair game and not a bad place to be.
Yeah. Apply now. Claim the
Don't even wait
closet.
for application. Email Tim directly with your video of why you would be the best mole. See what happens. So we get some nights rest. I think I maybe got 6 hours, something like that, because there's that nerve and desire to get up and start studying immediately. Like you said earlier, you have work you have to knock out before you
Mhm.
before you can even do anything else.
Yep.
And then before we know, we have the first quiz. So going in the quiz, you kind of talk generally of your strategy going in, but were you concerned? Were you trying to go fast? Were you trying to map out how you're spreading your answers? What was your mentality going into the quiz?
Yeah, so my mentality was, as I mentioned earlier, just trying to go majorities on everything. Just kind of go for what had the biggest numbers, and maybe go for like averages, if there's, certain ranges, just kind of going in the middle on certain things, but and going as fast as possible. So kind of really harping on where those were, and just going fast. So you know, getting on, taking the quiz, obviously 20 questions, there's a lot of questions to kind of breeze through. And, very quickly it's evident, after the first two questions, like, okay, this strategy of mine is not a very good strategy here, Steve. So I don't say panic mode strickens, but it's one of those things where you you practice or you study for a test, and then you realize, I think I studied chapter 2 and this is chapter 3. Oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't great. So I don't say panic mode, strikes, but it's like, oh shoot, this is like, got to figure this out. I still leaned heavily onto like, hey, I don't think a lot of people were anticipating it, so I'm still going to go fast, which
I
maybe
wasn't.
was what's that?
I wasn't anticipating either. I was very taken aback. Myself, like, I was like, oh, like I did not study right
Yeah.
either. I was like, oh no.
So I just leaned into like, hey, I'm still just going to go fast. If everyone's going to struggle with this, at least like I'm not going to, lose on a tie break type of situation. So, um, but it was one of those situations where I almost even I think went a little too fast in hindsight, and it was just like I don't say like Christmas train it, necessarily, but it was just like like I don't say you get panicked a little bit, but it's like oh my gosh, this is not let me just go with this, and didn't want to. In hindsight, I definitely should have taken a breath and just yes, that evil laughter is unnecessary there, but
I,
yeah, that was my downside a little bit of just a almost just rushing myself too much, and I don't want to give I'll say spoilers away or anything too much, but I think it was very close in terms of like the amount of questions from me to the next player, and it was yeah, it was like yeah, if I probably just took a deep breath, Steven, and just not focused on time so much and just you know um yeah, continue to try to spread things out a little bit. I think in hindsight, I ended up narrowing down a little too much on a couple players, and instead of like continuing to spread it out as much as I could, just in terms of like type of deal. And then it was obviously everyone sees the result and what shook out, but yeah, that's kind of how the quiz played out for me.
yeah, because it was interesting because prior seasons have 10-question quizzes. The mole
Yeah.
game I played before 10-question quizzes, so 20-question quizzes. It was novel and difficult, and I imagine Tim was going to keep it for next season.
Yeah, it's a good calling card for the Mole, Ohio. But yeah, no, it was going into it. I think I shared with some players where it's like, I just want to make it past like the first quiz because then you kind of know the format, the structure, and like how to approach things going forward. And it was always my fear of like this first one for me is going to be like the hardest one, just in terms of it's like anything, like if you're doing a scavenger hunt or something, it's like once you find that first clue or the first thing you're looking for, it's like okay, I know what like an immunity idol looks like. Is it this big or is it this big or is it brown? Is it what I mean? Like you don't know what it looks like, but once you get a picture of it or kind of it's like oh, it's easier to find it now. So that was for me, it's like let me just try. This first one's going to be could be my Achilles heel. Maybe I manifested it, Steven, who knows? But it was like, oh no, it was definitely stressing after I took that. And I think I was not the first person to take that quiz, but I was one of the earlier ones. So then I'm just sitting there in the living room waiting for people to kind of come through, and I was nervous, but I didn't want to seem nervous, just in terms of like a mole wouldn't be, what I mean, sweating profusely probably after the quiz, but yeah, I was definitely trying to keep a poker face, but I was pretty concerned after there. And as each name came and went, I was like, oh boy, this is not looking too good. Is what it is.
You ultimately get a red screen, and you were the first player executed in the game. I'm curious, on reflection, looking back at the Mole Ohio, if you were to play, let's say, another season of Mole Ohio or even a different Mole game, what would you do differently, or how would you approach it differently?
Yeah, I think of course Steven's probably going to change, or not Steven. Tim's going to change the quiz format completely. So I would come in with a strategy, and it would be completely wiped away yet again and be bamboozled. But I think going into it, I would be a little bit more, I'll say, open-minded, I guess, in terms of I don't want to say I was arrogant or cocky or something like that, but I kind of had my thoughts of like how this is how the quiz is going to be. Or this is like maybe how I would envision, maybe projecting like how I would act as the mole, and maybe kind of thinking this is like what I think the mole would do, in this game, where as the game played out, and again, I don't want to spoil it for everybody watching along this season, but it was things that I noticed that I was like, oh, that's not maybe not. That's just silly. It's not suspicious. Someone's trying to be suspicious, but it actually ends up being the mole where it was just being more open-minded in terms of what the possibilities are and not being so like focused in terms of what it could be. I think would be the biggest takeaway from myself, and I think anybody playing these games is just kind of staying more on your toes and being more adaptable or open to what can be sprung on you, because otherwise you can be watching from the sidelines fairly quickly.
And I do think that's one of the hardest parts in the mobile games. It's just kind of that high level randomness for the first elimination, first one or first two eliminations, where there's just not a lot of information. You're kind of just like guessing the best, and it's just like someone just guessed a little bit worse at the time, right? Kind of that mid game. That's where like, all right, people are getting eliminated because they're just wrong. They're just really wrong at that point in time. But the first time, it's like I got that first quiz. I'm like, oh gosh, it's like, who's your favorite singer? I'm like, I just know it's not my favorite singer. I'm just not putting points on myself.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no averages. There's not. Everyone has unique music taste, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it was a fun game, fun experience for sure. No, nothing like Tim, and John and Rachel. They were fantastic in production. And all the players, I think that was a fantastic cast. It wasn't everyone was great except this one. They were across the board. Everyone
that Steven guy really sucks.
Yeah. No, it was. I think that was a fantastic job casting and fantastic human beings, fantastic players. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Can I say fantastic again, Steven? How many more times can I say
all the
that?
time?
But no, it was great. Great experience.
So episode 2 drops next week. Tim is going to drop a little trailer teaser for that episode. Can you give a vague thing that we can expect for episode 2 that you got to watch?
Yeah. Again, I don't want to get. I guess I don't want to give too many spoilers, but yeah, there's definitely in the next second episode, there's definitely you'll probably see some more sabotage or more efforts across the board, Mole as well as the other players of getting much more into the game and getting a little bit more, say, animated, but yes, finger or maybe getting pointed a little bit more or some more suspicion cast and a little bit more concrete data. As you said before, the first few challenges, I think there was maybe some glimpses of some things that drew people's eyes that way. But I think in the second episode, you'll definitely start to see more serious, concrete information pushing people in certain directions. So it was some fun challenges in this next round.
One final message from Tim as we wrap up here. He says, "I'm always going to be devastated after the first execution, but it was especially upsetting to lose you so soon, Riley. Little broken heart."
Oh, thank you.
Well, for joining me here today. I really appreciate you kind of talking through your game and your experience and giving us a different aspect than what the episode provided.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure, Steven. Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you and playing with you in the game, and watching some of your videos, as well beforehand. And I'll be tuning in as the season goes on. And if you ever need some comic relief, give me a shout.
Hey, or if I ever do something Genius related, I'm coming to you.
Oh, absolutely. I love that.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Live Reality Game Podcast. Episode 2 of the Mole Ohio will drop next Thursday. I will again sit down with the eliminated player, and if I am the eliminated player, expect to have someone sit down with me to talk with me about the episode. So get excited. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Riley, and have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Thanks.